Hello and welcome to Callum Cymru revision sessions. This session will focus on Maths GCSE and will be presented by myself, Mrs Claire Dixon from Pentre Harvard School. The session will last around 45 minutes, where I will go through the relevant subject content. Okay, so this is session 4 for this block, and this is going to be focused on percentages, and you will need a calculator for today. Okay, so last session I went through the non-calculator processes, so today is calculator work. Okay, so everything we do today you will be allowed to use a calculator for. So the sessions that we've been through already this half term are solving non-linear equations, solving simultaneous equations, and then last week I did percentages, and obviously this week. Now next week will be a live session, so that will be available through you, okay, where we will do a recap of all the 4 sessions that have gone on this half term. So just a reminder, okay, this is the section of work we're looking at. This is an intermediate tier video, okay, and we're looking at all our percentages work, and we're going to increase that now to multipliers today as well for the calculator. So to begin with, okay, just to get our brain sort of going, can you have a go at the questions there? Pause the video and write down the following percentages, decimals, and rounding for the bottom part. Okay. Right then, so if you've had a chance to do these, okay, so write the following percentages as decimals. So to get a percentage as a decimal, we need to divide by 100. Okay, remember from last session that percent means out of 100. So 35%, 35 out of 100. So we divide by 100. The digits will move 2 places to the right. So 0.35 for the first one. Again, 2 places to the right for the next one, so 0.14. And the last one, we are still dividing by 100. Moving 2 places to the right here will mean we will have to have a placeholder of a 0. So 0.02 for that third one there, the C. Okay. The next part was to do with rounding. These are all skills we're going to use in today's session. So we are rounding to 2 decimal places. Now that means you want 2 digits after your decimal point. Okay, so you find your decimal point, you count 2 digits to the right. I don't want to be writing anything after that 7, but potentially the 7 could change depending on what comes after to the right of the line I just drawn in. So to the right of that is a 5, and anything that is 5 or more will affect the digit before it. So that 7 will go up by 1. So that value will turn into 3.58, and that has been rounded then to 2 decimal places. The next one, counting from the decimal point, 2 digits to the right, is in between, I can't draw a straight line, in between the second and the third 7 there that you can see after the point. But the 7 to the right of that, and it doesn't matter what values come after it, okay, it's only that first digit you come to the right of the line. So the 7 is the only one we're looking at. That is bigger than 5, so it affects the 7 that's just before it. So 12.78 for the B. For C, from after the 9, that's the second digit, I've got a 0. The 0 is not big enough to affect anything. Okay, that's come before, so 312.09 for C. And then the last one, 2 digits after the decimal, the 0 and the 9. Okay, so I don't want to be writing anything after that first 9. I look to the digit to the right, and I've got an 8, which is big enough to affect things. So it is going to change that 9, but we can't put a 9 in one column, a 10 in one column, sorry. So that will then knock onto the column in front, the 10th column. So it'll be 0.10. So we're actually having to knock on there. Now, don't leave it as just 0.1. The question specifically says 2 decimal places. So you've got to have your 2 digits, even if that happens to be a 0. Okay, so that's the first bit. So these are skills we're going to use in today's session. So we're going to go straight into finding a percentage of a quantity. Now, if you remember from the last session, okay, we had this in that, which was to multiply the quantity by the percentage and divide by 100. There were various different ways for a non-calculator and a calculator process. So as I said, we're looking at just the calculator work today. Okay, so this might vary slightly from last session if you've watched that one. So the first question we're going to go into, and if I go back just to the criteria, it says, multiply the quantity by the percentage. Okay, so the quantity in the question is the number part that we're looking at, so the 65. So we're going to multiply that by the percentage, which happens to be 27. And then the last part of the success criteria said divide by 100. So we're now going to divide by 100, and all of that goes straight into the calculator, and your calculator should give you the answer of 17.55. Now just remember that if you've got the scientific calculators, sometimes you've got to press that SD button just above the AC so that you can convert that into a decimal. Okay, sometimes it'll give you the fraction answer first, so make sure you are confident with your calculator work to convert between them. You don't want to be stressing in the exams, do you? Okay, so your first task, it should be a really, really quick task. Pause the video and have a go at those 4 questions for me. Okay, coming back then, all right, so the methods that you should have had: 51 multiplied by 82 divided by 100, giving you an answer of 41.82, and all of that is just straight from the calculator. Okay, the second one, 2,834 multiplied by 56 divided by 100. Every time it's 100, okay, that is never going to change. So 1,587.04. Third one, 654 times by 98 divided by 100, answer 640.92. And then the final one you can see there, 620 multiplied by 4 divided by 100, giving you 24.8. Okay, so that task should have been quite quick. That's how you find a percentage of quantity using your calculator, but probably these are going to come up in the non-calculator, but you still need to know how to do this to feed into other questions. Okay, another part of what was on the spec I showed you at the start was expressing one number as a percentage of another. Again, we did this in the non-calculator methods. Okay, we're just going to practice the calculator one now so that you're confident with that as well. So it says one number divided by another, and then once we've got that, multiply by 100. So you should be making little notes now as we go through this session. So I'd encourage you now to pause it and just copy that yellow box onto your piece of paper so you can create your own revision notes now. So the first question, okay, so one number divided by the other. So we're going to do 86 divided by 160. And then it says to multiply by 100. Now, sometimes you'll see me writing them as a fraction, which means divide. Sometimes you'll see me writing as a divide sign, okay? It means exactly the same thing. So it's just that fraction line means divide. So 86 divided by 160 and then multiply by 100. Now, this answer will be a percentage answer. Okay, so the calculator gives you 53.75. But we do want to put our percent sign on the end, okay, because the question says express this as a percentage. So we're making sure that percent sign is there at the end. So make sure you're reading the questions and giving the examiner what they're asking for, okay? So don't lose marks by little things like that. Okay, so we're going to follow the same step. You're going to have a go at 3 questions. It's one number divided by the other and then multiply by 100. So pause the video and try those 3, please. Okay, so I'm coming back in now. So what you should have been doing is 92, and I can write this as a divide, I can write it as a fraction. Okay, so 92 divided by 250, multiplied by 100, and your calculator should have given you 36.8%. Remember that percent sign on the end there. Okay, next one, I'm going to decide for whatever reason I'm going to write it slightly differently. It means exactly the same thing, remember. 24 out of 80, 24 divided by 80 times by 100, giving you 30% for that one. And then the final one, I'm going to go back to doing divide just because I want to. So 6 divided by 33, multiplied by 100, answer. Now then, the calculator gives you quite a long answer here. Okay, so it's 18.18. So this is where what we did at the start is going to help you. Okay, so this I'm going to round to 2 decimal places. So 18.18. Okay, and that would have continued there, but you don't want to write the whole thing in the exam. You want to be rounding, and usually it's 1 or 2 decimal places, but make sure you read the question, because occasionally the examiners will give you a value that you want to round to. So they might say round to 3 decimal places, or maybe 2 significant figures. If the question says that, you must follow it. Okay, but for today, we'll stick to 2 decimal places if we need to. Okay, we're going to stick with the same sort of topic, but now we're going to have a look at something that's got different units. So by this, I mean, if we have a look at this question here, it says express 11 months as a percentage of 5 years. Okay, so these are the moments that are in different units. Now, you don't want to do that in different units. You want to get them the same. So you are going to need a little bit of general knowledge as you go through this as well, to know how many months are in a year and be able to use that. So the best thing to do is to convert the bigger one into the smaller one. So the years is bigger than months, okay? So we're going to convert that. Now in every year there are 12 months. So if we have 5 years, we will have 12 multiplied by 5. So that will tell me that I have 60 months. So when I go to answer this question, I'm not going to think of this as a 5. I'm going to think of this as 60. So it's express 11 out of 60 as a percentage, which means that we're multiplying that by 100. Now then, when you type that in your calculator, you will have 18.3333, and that carries on. Okay, but we don't want to do that. But we also, perhaps with this type of question, I wouldn't round to 2 decimal places, because that 3 is repeating. That's called recurring. And in maths is a symbol for recurring that we can use that says that digit keeps repeating and goes on forever. And that's a little dot just above the number or numbers that are repeating. Okay, so because it's only the 3 that's repeating this time, the 3 has the dot. So it's 18.3 recurring, and obviously as a percent as well then. Okay, so sometimes we'll round, sometimes we'll put as recurring, sometimes we'll have the calculator value. It's all about you being able to interpret what you feel is best as you go through. Examiners will mark them, okay, unless the question specifically says to write it in a certain value, they will mark what you have done, okay? So just think about what you feel confident with. Okay, can you try the next 5 questions? Pause the video and really think carefully about how many minutes in an hour, how many days in a year, and so on. All right, and work from there. So pause the video, have a go. If you need some hints, you can come back in a few seconds and have a go. Right then, so I'm going to give you some hints just in case you haven't been able to start, okay? And then we'll pick up then. I'll give you a little bit more time to pause the video if you need to. So 25 minutes of 3 hours, okay? Now, there are 60 minutes in an hour. So that hours would be 60 times 3. So that would be 180 minutes. Okay, now that's not the answer to the question. That's what you're going to use instead of using the 3 hours. So for the first one, you're going to have 25 minutes out of 180 minutes. Okay, the second one, there are 365 days in a year. Okay, so instead of 1 for 1 year, you're going to use 365. There are 12 months in a year. So if I've got 3 years, that's going to be 36 months. There are 1,000 liters, can't speak. There are 1,000 milliliters in a liter. So 6 liters is 6,000 milliliters. And then the final one, okay, let's just think about this first of all. There are 100 centimeters in a meter, okay? So 100 centimeters is 1 meter. And then there are 1,000 meters in a kilometer. Okay, so if you were struggling to start, have another go. Now I've given you some hints. Pause the video again and try those questions. If you're ready for your answers, just hold on a minute. Okay, so the answers now then. So what you should have had for number 1 is 25 divided by 180 multiplied by 100, giving you 13.8 recurring %. Number 2, 12 divided by 365, multiply by 100, answer, and I'm going to round this one to 2 decimal places, 3.29%, and I'm going to tell the examiner that I've rounded as well, okay? I'm putting that by the side, 2dp. Number 3, you should have been doing 8 divided by 36, multiply by 100, giving you 22.2 recurring percent. Number 4, 555 divided by 6,000. Oh, I missed out my times 100 here. Times 100, and then that is 9.25%. And then finally, this one at the bottom, obviously 1,200 for the centimetres. Now the number you should have been dividing by was 400,000. There's 5 zeros on there. Times by 100, giving you, and it's quite a small one, 0.3%. Okay, and that was then 4 multiplied by 100 and multiplied by 1,000, giving you that 400,000 for that part there. Right, so that's the end. We've done percentage of quantities, we've done expressing one number as a percentage of another. The next part is percentage change, okay? And again, we started this with a non-calculator work, okay? And we saw words like increase and decrease last time. So we're going to use those again now. So pause the video, write down the formula that you've got on the screen so you can use it now in the questions that we go over. So percentage change is the change divided by the original multiplied by 100. And the first example I'm going to go through is this one. So Joshua earns £12.50 per hour. Okay, so I'm just going to highlight my key information. So £12.50 per hour. He receives a pay increase of £1.50 per hour. Calculate his pay increase as a percentage of the original price. So the formula was change. Now the change that's happened is the increase of £1.50. So the £1.50 is what's happened. That is the change. So that will be divided by the original amount. And Joshua originally earned £12.50. Every time, just like the previous lot of questions, multiply by 100. Okay, once you type that into your calculator, what you should end up with is 12%. Okay, that's the first one done. So that was a pay increase question. Can have a look at the next one now, and this is going to be a decrease question. Let's pick out our key information. So a jumper originally costing £70 is reduced to, now it's not the change, this is to £65.80. Calculate the reduction as a percentage of the original price. So in the previous question, we were given what the change was, what happened to it. It went up by £1.50. But in this question, we're not told what it's reduced by. We're just told what it goes to is reduced to £65.80. So to work out how much it's changed by, we have to do the original price, take away what it is now, okay, and that will tell us how much money this has gone down by, this jumper has reduced, okay, by £4.20. So the formula now is going to be £4.20 divided by what it started as, okay, it's always got to go back to the original amount. So originally it was £70, multiply by 100, and the answer then, once you've got it into your calculator, is 6%. Okay, so to have a go at the two questions on the screen now, pause the video and try those. Okay, so I'm going to start going over them. I'm going to pick up my key information first of all. So a bike was bought for £5,495. A year later, it was sold for £1,050 less. Okay, make sure we're reading this carefully. £1,050 less. Calculate the loss in value as a percentage of the original. So it's gone down by 1,050. Okay, so the change that's happened is the 1,050. Originally, the bike cost £5,495. Multiply by 100, and then into your calculator, 19.11. I'm going to stick to 2 decimal places, okay, because that one did go on. So 19.11% was the reduction as a percentage. Okay, question 2. Charlie bought an antique painting for 10,500 and sold it for 20,000. So this is the new price. Calculate the percentage profit. Okay, so the difference between £20,000 and 10,500 is 9,500. Okay, so 9,500 divided by the original price of, apologies, 10,000, I can't write my thing there, 10,500. Multiplying by 100, we get 90.48% to 2 decimal places. Okay, so 9,500 divided by the 10,500, multiply by 100. So how much is changed by divided by the original? Okay, it's changed, gone up by 90, just over 90%, which is quite a lot, isn't it? Okay. Right then, on to the next part. So we're going to build on that now. So we're still going to use our keywords like increase and decrease. Okay, we're going to look at increasing to start. So we've got, for an increase or a profit, sometimes you'll see the word profit. That will be 100% add on whatever the percentage increase is. Okay, and this will be called our multiplier. And then we'll divide by 100. Now, if it was the opposite, the decrease, the only difference being, you can see the plus has changed to a take away. Okay, so it's 100% take away or percentage. Oh, that should say decrease there. Percentage decrease. Divide by 100. So I'm going to show you this with a diagram now, just so you can really picture what's going on. Okay, so it says, first of all, write the multiplier for a 20% increase. So a multiplier is what we can multiply the original quantity by without having to do all the dividing by 100 and adding it on and working out that type of thing. Okay, we can do this quite quickly. So if we think of this, because this is an increase, what you're doing, if we think about our success criteria, we started with 100%. Okay, so this 100% is our whole amount, and then we're going to add on our increase. So 100% is there, that's the entire thing that we started with, but we're going to add on another 20%. So we've actually now got 120%. Okay, so altogether the original amount and another 20 is 120%. So then if you go think back to what I just showed you on the last screen, okay, to get back to that, the next step was to divide by 100. So that 120 is going to be divided by 100. And the number that we have now will be a decimal, okay, and that will be our, what's called the multiplier, so 1.2. So instead of having to work out 20% of a number, adding it on, if we just multiply by 1.2, we will get the answer straight away. Okay, so let's have a little look at the opposite of that now, which is decreasing. So this time we've got write the multiplier for a 30% decrease. Now every time picture starting with 100%, okay, so we've got the entire amount, but now we want to take 30% off this. We want to take 30% away. So that bar is actually going to decrease. It's going to come down by 30%, which now leaves 70% of the original amount, not the original 100%. Okay, so we're taking 30% off, leaving us with 70. Now that 70%, as we do with the previous one, whether it's an increase or decrease, needs to be divided by 100, and that will tell you your multiplier. Okay, so if I wanted to work out a 30% decrease, rather than finding 30% and taking away, if you just multiply by 0.7, you will get straight to the answer. Okay, so it's a quicker way of doing this, especially with calculator papers. Okay, so I want you now to try and write down just the multipliers for these. Okay, so think of if it's an increase, the bar gets bigger. If it's a decrease, the bar gets smaller, and we've got to divide by 100 every time. So can you pause the video and see if you can write those as multipliers for me, please? Okay then, so a 32% increase, okay? So that is the original 100% plus another 32%. That will give me 132%. But I don't leave it as a percentage. I now divide by 100 to give me a multiply of 1.32. Okay, so if it's an increase, it should be a 1 point something. If it's a decrease, it should be 0 point something. So question 2 is a profit. Now a profit is an increase. So it's the original 100% plus another 12%. That will give me 112%. To get the multiplier from that stage, divide it by 100 and then write down that value. Okay, so 1.12. Now then the next one's a decrease. A decrease is taken away. Okay, so it's 100%, but we're now taking away 6%. So 100 take away 6 is 94. And divide that by 100, 0.94. Okay, so you would multiply by 0.94 if you wanted to do a 6% decrease. 73% loss, again, a loss is a decrease. So 100 take away 73. Okay, that's going to give you 27%. Divided by 100, 0.27 as a decimal, then a multiplier. And then the final one is a gain. A gain is an increase. So 100% add on 61. That's 161%. Okay, divided by 100, 1.61. Now, those are the things that we're going to need for the next task. All right, so we're going to be using what's called these multipliers now to answer some questions. Now, some keywords that you will hear in this little section will be these two. So appreciation is when the value of an item increases, and then depreciation is when the value of an item decreases. Okay, so what we're going to do to work out our answers here, and again, pause the video and try and get these written down. Okay, we're going to calculate the multiplier just like we did on the previous slide. But then once we've got that, we're going to multiply the quantity by that number. So let's have a look at a question. I'm going to just get my highlighter so we can pick out our keywords. Okay, so Jack buys a camera for £995. This camera increases in value over time. When Jack goes to sell the camera, it is worth an extra 3%. So because it's an increase, this is going to go up to when he purchased it. Using multipliers, how much is the camera worth when Jack wants to sell it? Okay, so we're going to start by finding that multiplier. So 100% always the starting point. Because it's an increase, it's an add, and it's 3%. So that gives me 103% from what we started with. But you divide by 100 to get your multiplier. So to divide by 100, 1.03. That is the number that we're going to multiply this 995 by. So 995 multiplied by 1.03. And without doing any other calculations, that will tell me how much the camera is worth. And it came out to be £1,024.85. Okay, so this method saves you a lot of time in an exam and it gets you straight to the answer. Okay, so we're going to look at a decrease question next. So we've now got Catherine buys a phone for £415. The phone depreciates, so it goes down in value over time. When Catherine wants to sell her phone, it is decreased in value by 16%. Using multipliers, how much is the phone worth, okay, when she wants to sell her phone? So multiplier first. 100% is the starting point. We're taking 16% off. That's going to give me 84%. Okay. Don't leave it as a percentage. You divide by 100. So 0.84 is going to be what I multiply by. So the quantity in this question is £415. We're going to multiply, and it's always multiply. It doesn't matter if it, sometimes people get confused when it goes down, they need to try and divide. It's always multiply, okay? The depreciation part has come because it's a 0 point number rather than 1 point something. So always multiplying, 415 multiplied by 0.84, £348.60. Okay, so when Catherine wants to sell her phone, because of the decrease in value, £348.60 is now how much it's worth. Okay, pause the video and try those two questions, please. Okay, so question 1, the multiplier, okay, this is reducing, it's going down. So it's 100%, take away 24%. That's going to give me 76%. As a decimal, that would be 0.76. Okay, so the multiplier part that you should have been using, 0.76. That gets multiplied by the 180 that it was originally worth, giving you then an answer of £136.80. Okay, so that was how much the item was in the shop. The next one, it increases by 2%. So the increase is 100%, add on 2%. That gives me 102%. So as a multiplier, I divide by 100, so 1.02 is the multiplier. Right then, salary originally was £34,200. So if you multiply those together, that will then tell you her new salary. So it was £34,884 once you've done that calculation. Okay, on to what's called repeated then. Okay, so we're building up again. Okay, so we're building each time we do a new section. So we're using what we've just done with the multipliers to help us answer this part. So something called compound interest. Okay, now you'll hear these as you go perhaps open up a bank account or a savings account. Okay, they get used within our sort of banks and building societies that we have. So this is calculated on the original amount and the interest already accumulated. So what happens when you've got compound interest is that if you keep some money in an account for maybe 2 years, it's not just the interest over the 2 years. Because you get interest every year added to your account, when you go to work out the second year, you've got a little bit more money in there that you then have interest on as well. Okay, so I'll show you now through an example. So the success criteria this time is to calculate the multiplier, which we've already done. Now then we've got this new part, raise the multiplier to the number of years, months or days that the question asks us to. And then we're going to multiply by the quantity, okay, just like we did in the previous task. So there's only one extra bit with this really, and that's the power part. So let me show you. Okay, so we have Tom puts £500 in the bank, okay. It's 3% compound interest per year. After this £500, Tom does not take any money out or put money into the account. How much money will he have in the bank after 6 years? Okay, now if this was in a non-calculator question, you would have to find 3% of 500, add it on for 1 year, and then repeat for the second year, third year, fourth year, fifth year, sixth year. So it would take you quite a long time. Okay, so using this method gets us straight to the answer, but we need our multiplier first. Now, because interest is added on to your account, it's 100 plus 3% for the multiplier, which is 103%, which has a decimal 1.03. Okay, the amount that we started with is £500. We're going to write it that we're multiplying by this multiplier. Okay, so times it by 1.03. That's what we've done previously, but we've got to bring in the fact that we've got 6 years as well. Now 6 years is the power. Okay, so and it's only for the multiplier. You don't put the power on the money. It's just the multiplier. Okay, so it's 500 multiplied by 1.03 to the power 6. And if you type that into your calculator, you will have to round because it's money. So it's £597.03, so and 3 pence. So £597 and 3 pence. Okay, so for keeping £500 in an account for 6 years, he has gained nearly £100 interest, £97.03 interest. Okay, and that works the same when something depreciates as well. So the next one I've got for us is a car depreciated in value. Okay, so Ella buys a car for £9,995. The car depreciates by 7% per year. How much is the car worth after 4 years? So multiplier first, okay? So 100% take away 7%. That gives me 93%. As a decimal, 0.93. That's going to be my multiplier. So 9,995 multiplied by 0.93. And this time is for 4 years. So we've got a power 4 going in there. Okay, and then straight into the calculator, and it will give us the answer of how much the car is worth. £7,476.78. Again, 2 decimal places. Every time it's money, it's 2 decimal places. Okay, so we've got 2 questions there for you to try just before we come towards the end. So pause the video now and try those for me. Okay, so David invests £5,000 into a bank account, 2.5% interest for 4 years. How much money does he have at the end of the 4 years? Okay, so the multiplier, this is an interest, is added on. So 100 plus the 2.5 is 102.5%. So as a multiplier, that is 1.025. You haven't got wrong just because you've got more digits after the decimal. Sometimes they will have decimal percentages and you will need that, okay? That gets multiplied by the £5,000 that originally had, and 4 years, so a power 4 just on that multiplier, and it should give you £5,519 and 6 pence. Okay, again, I've rounded, so I'm writing down that I've rounded. Okay, question 2. A shop reduces all its prices by 15%. Okay, so before I carry on reading, I'm just going to do my multiplier. So I'm taking 15% off. That's going to leave me with 85%, which as a multiplier is 0.85. Okay, so it reduces by 15% and then a further 8% after that. Okay, so an 8% reduction would be taking 8 away from 100, which is 92%. So that would be a multiplier of 0.92. But that one says for the following 2 weeks, so that must have a power 2 with it. The 15% was only once. What would the new price be of an item originally costing £120? Now, when you've got something that's happening in multiple stages, okay, we can do them all in one go by just multiplying. Okay, so if we think about what we've got here, we've got the 120 was the price, reduced by 15% for the first part, and then a further 2 weeks with the power there at 8%. Okay, so that will then give you an answer overall of £86.33 to 2 decimal places. Okay, we're just going to finish off now. Where's it? Okay, the plenary. So what I'd like you to do now is show clearly whether the following statement is true or false. If you increase a positive number by 10% and then decrease that new value by 10%, you get back to the original number. Now, this was a GCSE question. This was worth 4 marks. Now, the words show clearly were in bold in the exam as well. Okay, so it's not good enough to just say yes or no or true or false. You have to show your method. Now, there's no number given here, so you can choose a value to start, okay? So pause the video, have a little go at that, and then I'll come back in and go over this with you. Okay, so you can use any number you want, all right? But I'm going to choose 100 just because I like the number 100. But you can use any number as long as you start with a number. So I'm going to start with 100. If I increase by 10%, that would be a multiplier of 1.1 or 1.10 if you want that. Okay, that would be 110. And then that new amount, that 110, then gets decreased by by 10%. Now a decrease multiplier of 10% is 0.9. Okay, that would give me 99, which is not my original number. I started with 100, but I've now got 99. And that's because you're finding percentages of different amounts. 10% of 100 is not the same as 10% of 110. And that's why there's a different value there. Okay, now what I've written on the screen here was enough to get 4 marks. You don't have to have paragraphs or lots and lots of workings. You just need to clearly show what you meaning by what you're trying to explain. Okay, so I got all 4 marks by just doing that example. Okay, we have come to the end. So just a reminder to you that today is session 4. So we've just done this calculator work here. So next week it is a live session where we will be recapping all 4 of the sessions that have gone on previously. Okay, so please sign in and have a go. And there's an opportunity there then for you to do question and answer as well, and write some questions that you have for us. Okay, so best of luck with your revision. Hopefully see you next week.